Hi, I'm Mike Morrison for Trail Talk, and we're here on location today at the Ashland Community Center for a very special event. This is the 2014 Upper Charles Trail Public Forum Open House. Today, you have speakers here from all 5 towns of the Upper Charles Trail: Milford, Ashland, Holliston, Hopkinton, and Sherburne, all presenting ideas and progress that they have made on the trail in each of their towns. We'll also hear from a few keynote speakers, such as Milford Selectman Chair William Buckley, uh, Tom Sannicandro, Mass State Representative, and a few others about what it means, what this trail means in terms of a wider regional perspective in Metro West and Massachusetts as a whole. So, stay tuned for Milford TV coverage of the 2014 Upper Charles Trail Public Forum. Thanks for watching.
So good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for coming out today. This is awesome to see so many interested parties in the Upper Charles Rail Trail. So today's public forum, as you can see here, is a symposium to talk about our current status, future plans, and the benefit of a regional approach to rail development. Today's objective is to gain an understanding of the regional connections of the Upper Charles Rail Trail. So the current development status, future plans, and the benefits of a regional approach. With that said, we have a very jam-packed agenda for this morning. So we're going to try to move things very quickly and stay on our time schedule as we have this wonderful building till noon today. So if things seem like they're going a little quickly, that's part of the reason. So on the agenda today, thank you for arriving and joining us for our meet and greet, and hopefully everyone's had a chance to do just that, to meet and talk and make some connections as part of this agenda. So as we get started this morning, we have some time allotted to distinguished guests. We want to do a couple of recognitions, in particular for the Milford section of the trail, where we have some sponsors as well as some adopters, and we wanted to share that with the rest of the group. We will also have some distinguished guests that we will be recognizing in a few moments that are in our audience today. So that, again, if you'd like to make some connections with these folks, or at least meet them face to face, you'll have that opportunity. We will have a local business success story. So we get lots of questions about what's working, how do you measure things like commerce and the impact of that in your community. And hopefully we'll learn a little bit more about that today from a real success story. We have the importance of public and political support. And that will be Milford Selectman Chairman William Buckley. And I'm sorry, I forgot to mention Patria Lanfranchi is the business owner of the Riding Studio Cafe, who will be talking about the local business success. And that's actually on the Minuteman Trail in Lexington. We also have a last minute addition of David Lautzenheiser from the Metropolitan Area Planning Council, who'll talk more about the overall area. Then we'll have a little break for some questions and answers addressed to those particular speakers. And then we have Mass State Rep Tom Sannicandro, who represents the Ashland area, who's actually going to arrive. And he's actually fitting us in between things, so we might adjust our schedule a little bit depending on when he's here and so forth. And then, last but certainly not least, we'll have the 5 towns that comprise the Upper Charles Rail Trail providing some updates about what's happening with their particular towns for their section of the rail trail. And then we'll have some space for question and answers, and then we'll wrap things up. So for our distinguished guests this morning, we have several that are listed here, and we also have a couple of folks that are joining us this morning that we'll also mention. So first of all, for those that we mention, if you wouldn't mind like either raising your hand or perhaps standing up so that the folks in our audience will know who you are in case they want to connect. So our first distinguished guest is Karen Spilka, our state senator, who's here, I think, in the audience. And if, Karen, are you here? And if Karen's not here, we might have Puya Mehta, her representative, that might be here. Okay, not yet. Okay, perhaps they'll be joining us. Maybe they ran into some traffic. I did notice that there was some action on 135 today, perhaps a marathon test run. We have Carolyn Dickma, a state representative in our audience. There she is. Thank you. And I don't know if Leia's here also. Leah Robbins, your legislative aide. Then we also have in our audience the Ashland Town Manager, Tony Schiavi, if you're here. Tony. From the Ashland Board of Selectmen, we have Steve Mitchell. Excellent, thank you. Oh, and okay, perfect, thank you. And so, moving right along, we're going to talk about some special thank yous this morning. Special thank yous to the Ashland Dunkin' Donuts. Louise O'Neill was gracious enough to donate all of the coffee that you see here this morning, as well as the cream, etc. And just for those of you that may not be familiar, most of the pastries and so forth that you see here are all things that volunteers either baked or were able to get donated. So the Price Chopper in Hopkinton, our Hopkinton members were able to get a donation of some pastries for them, so thank you. And we also have this morning Milford Cable TV here, and you've probably noticed that they are filming so that we actually will have this documented and shareable on YouTube for all of the surrounding towns to be able to have available. So next up, so I represent the Friends of the Milford Upper Charles Trail, so the Milford section, and I know you guys are probably very familiar with the work that's already transpired there. Within our group, we have sponsors, and these are businesses that give us $100 each year for a placement on our website for a little business size ad here. And so we wanted to take this opportunity to publicly thank them and recognize their contributions to helping us do all the great stuff in the Milford area. So to start with, we have a whole variety. I could read them all here, but in the interest of time, I will just let you know that they are posted on our website. If you click on any of the links, they will take you to their specific pages. And certainly, please, we encourage everyone to visit all of our sponsor organizations and help them to continue to be sponsors. Our second set. And one thing I might mention, you'll notice that not all of the sponsors are just in Milford. They are from the area. So keep that in mind as your own friends groups are developing or as you're trying to get things started. And then we do have one new group that isn't on our website yet, but will be shortly. Critter Visits, who donated one of the several dog cleanup stations that we have along the Milford Path. And then, of course, we wouldn't be able to have a very successful trail without the people that are actually behind the scenes, all the volunteers who actually come out and help us with our twice-a-year cleanups and so forth. We do have an Adopt a Trail program. Our Adopt a Trail program right now comprises of about 13 different organizations or individuals or families who basically volunteer their time to come out and adopt a piece of our trail and help us keep it clean and maintained. So this is also on our website, but you can see they're all listed here. So it spans from the Masons to families to church groups. And again, not all of these are just in Milford. They actually span the region. And with that, I think I'm on time. So I would like to take this opportunity to invite Patria Lanfranchi to join us and tell us about the success the Minuteman Trail has proven for her business.
It's really great to be with everyone today. As Pat mentioned, I'm Patria Lanfranchi, co-owner and curator of Ride Studio Cafe in Lexington, Massachusetts. This is the front of it's the cafe, and this is with a parklet, which I'll mention later. That's in the front of it, and it sits right on Mass Ave. So let me explain a little bit about who we are, so you know the perspective that I'm coming from. We are an independent, one-of-a-kind bike store cafe. We also have a full-service mechanic shop, and it's a fairly small space, but we're able to fit a lot in this small space. It's also a community space. It's where people come, they have a coffee, they've ridden their bikes in, or they've just come for a coffee, and they sit and stay a while. And we're definitely a bike riding destination. So this is, just to give you a quick idea of what it looks like inside, this is a shot of the cafe. We have food, coffee, and I mentioned water because you can fill up your water bottle anytime. We sell bikes, we sell apparel, and also bike accessories, tubes, all that kind of good stuff, anything you need on your bike ride. And we have customer parking. So if you want, you can bring your bike inside and you don't have to worry about it. Though we also have some great bike parking outside too. This is a piece of our mechanic shop. And it's well staffed. We're very lucky. We have an amazing staff, and that's a big reason for our success and the community that we've built is the people we have working for us. So why did we move into Lexington? We've been in Lexington 4 years this April, which has been terrific. And I think a lot of people thought when we moved in that we wouldn't be around for more than a year. Well, a big reason is we're near the bikeway. Lexington's where the quiet roads begin. When you're coming out of Boston, it's on that radius where the traffic all of a sudden dies down, and it's an easy place to ride out of or through to get to where you want to go. And it's easily accessible to people outside of Lexington. Mass Ave is a major road right next to us, so it's just easy to get to the town. And again, like I said, it's a great gateway to really amazing riding. And here's a map. I have also, this is something Lexington just came up with, and in Friends of the Bikeway. This is a map. I have a few copies of it here, so you can see where it goes from into starting down in Cambridge at the LYT station and ending in Bedford. And so we're actually across the street from the bikeway. The bikeway is on the north side, we're on the south side, which definitely presents a few challenges with people crossing Mass Ave. We've had a few issues with that, but we are very fortunate to be as close as we are.
Can you point to you?
Oh, I'm sorry. Lexington Center is here, and we are right here.
Thank you.
And the Lexington Depot, I should mention that, the Lexington Depot is just up the path, a couple hundred yards on the other side of the street, and there have been a lot of pedestrian and bike surveys taken to count the number of travelers coming to and from. So that's just not that far up the trail, and I'll be mentioning that later. So what is the Minuteman Commuter Bikeway? It was built in 1992 to 93. It's 11 miles long, spanning from Cambridge up to Bedford, as I mentioned. We are 8 miles up from the start of the path. And it has become one of the most popular and successful rail trails in the United States. It's tremendously used, and it's been successful by all measures. And especially at first. At first, there were definitely people in Lexington who didn't want the path, mostly to keep the element out. Well, you never hear anyone say, darn that rail trail. It's amazing. It's definitely been terrific. So why the Minuteman Commuter Bikeway? Well, a big reason, and we even call it the Commuter Bikeway, is for transportation. Is a lot of commuters use the bikeway to get to work. We have quite a few customers, and we see many people first thing in the morning, last thing in the evening, year round, getting down to Boston or Cambridge to where they work. So it's definitely encouraged them to live in Lexington, making it that they don't have to take their cars to get to work. And a good way of showing how important it is that in the wintertime, when it's not necessarily amazing bike riding weather, it's plowed. And it's on a donation basis that residents who feel it's important pay in every year to make sure that it's plowed. So people are getting to work on the coldest, worst days of the year. Recreation. People go out and have fun on the path. It's really terrific. It's a great place for people to use it for skating, walking, running, everything. And you see a lot of kids. It gets them off of Mass Ave. That's really great. So safe. It keeps them away from traffic. And then it also improves the perception of the location and the accessibility. So as a business, that's one of the things that we considered is, well, it's a bike-friendly place. You have this path going right through the town, and the town obviously is embraced that. So a lot of it is the image of it, even though sometimes people are going to be riding their bikes on Mass Ave, which there's certainly a population of people who will stay on the road. It's still saying we're very welcome to cyclists and people who just want to be out on foot and outside. And it's also, this is something that's been really interesting to us, the introduction to beginners. We've seen quite a few customers who started off by, for one customer example, living in Davis Square, just wanting to get out. They start by coming up on the bike path with their bike, and it's not in good condition and all that kind of stuff, but they just want to get out. And then they start getting into it. And then they start coming up all the time, and all of a sudden this customer who was riding just 3 miles at a time, and that was amazing, now he's going way, way, way out to all sorts of towns further away from us, easily doing a 50-mile bike ride. So it's a great way of saying, hey, this is a safe place to be, it's easy to go, everybody's doing it, and then people establish a lot of really great habits as a result. So it's a new type of Main Street, where neighbors come together, they ride, walk, skate, jog, and in the wintertime, they cross-country ski, and snowshoe, and who knows what else you could do in a winter like this, ice skate. So what does the bike path mean to Lexington businesses? Obviously, it's always been around since we've been around, so I can't say, well, since the bike path's been in, we've seen this amazing uptick in business. We've seen a lot of people come to our business from the path. Quite a few people. It's, we have not ourselves taken any numbers in our business saying, yes, this is how many people came up the path, but we hear it all the time. It's part of our daily conversations about what's going on the path. So, the bike path means people are riding their bikes into town. When you ride your bike into town, it's easy to get to the door of the business. It's not that easy to park. And parking, car parking, has been a really big conversation in Lexington lately. So there's definitely going to be some changes there. There's just not enough parking for the number of people who can get in on their bikes. And you want to go up to a business, you stop. Oh, by the way, you saw the business, because when you're driving through, you may not even see a business. When you're tootling by on your bike, you might just drop in. And that happens a lot. It eases the traffic congestion again, and it brings people to town from neighboring towns who wouldn't necessarily come in. Like, for example, we have a couple of different frozen yogurt establishments. Well, you're not going to necessarily get in your car and drive to another town to go to a frozen yogurt establishment because your town probably has one. But you're out and about, it's a great day to be out, and it's always fun to stop for a treat. So people are bringing their business in, and most people, and cycling has a food culture around it, so it's particularly easy to get people to stop to eat a little bit. And then most cyclists prefer a path to the road, even though once in a while they'll get on the road or they might start to feel more comfortable with the road. It's still the path of least resistance. It's still the no-brainer. Oh yeah, there's the path. You know what, I'm having a hard day, I'm tired. The path's there. It's very welcoming. And this is something that we've really found, especially this winter, when there have been days when you're crazy to be on a bike many of our customers come in jeans, they've driven, and they come in and they do business because they've gotten used to coming to Lexington. And these are not people who live in Lexington necessarily, but now they come to Lexington Center. So we've seen people throughout the wintertime as a result. And a lot of times, and I make this comment a lot, you'll hear me say this very frequently, I didn't know what you look like off the bike. And now we do. So it's really, really neat to see the community continue, that those habits continue, people feel comfortable in town. They feel part of town whether or not they live in Lexington. And tourism, this is especially key in Lexington, but I think this is something that you'll find everywhere, is that bike paths encourage tourists. It's an easy place for a tourist to go, rent a bike, or they bring their bikes. Oftentimes people are traveling much more with their bikes. And they've got time, and they got money, so they're great to have in town. It's good to encourage that. So there's a lot of data that's been taken. There have been a lot of trip counts done for various purposes throughout time. So I just took an average weekend day, 12 hours, and it comes out to approximately 3,600 trips in a 12-hour period. When you think about how many people that is, that's really impressive. And this could be who knows what kind of day. And every day is different. And you'll find out there's, vacationing times when more people are out of town, and then you have tourists in, and, if it's a cloudy day, sometimes more people are out or fewer people are out, that sort of thing. So there's a lot of things that affect these counts. But we've seen other counts that were well over 4,000 people on a single day. That's a lot of people. You're not going to park that many cars. Those people aren't going to be in town otherwise, except that path is there. And the weekday commute hours, this was a single count that they did on a really very random day, it's like a Tuesday. And they counted people in the morning hours, in the evening commute hours, and there were 750 trips, which is saying a lot. And I would bet my life that number is a lot bigger now. It's significant. When you go out there, it's busy. So there are a lot of examples. I just chose 3 to say, yes, this is working. The shoe store is it's a prominent store in town. The owners have been around for a very, very long time. And I don't think they were originally excited in general about bike traffic. They are very, very excited about bike traffic now. They have seen an uptick in their business of shoes, which is something you don't think about selling someone on a bicycle, because they don't sell bike shoes. We sell bike shoes, they don't sell bike shoes. They've seen that their business has increased, and they are huge proponents, and they're also very active in town. So they're really big reasons why we have so many bike initiatives in Lexington. So they're a good story. The Greater Boston Running Company is located, they have many locations throughout Massachusetts and nationwide, and one of their key stores is in Lexington. And why is that? You've got a lot of people coming off the path, a lot of runners. They lead a lot of runs, which I think it would be really challenging. I'm not a runner myself, but you don't really want to put a group of runners on the road. You want to put them on the bike path. So they start a lot of runs from their store. And subsequently, we lead a whole bunch of bike rides from our store. So it's one of those things, it's great. It's when you tell people there's a run at a certain time, you'll have a group of 30 people show up without thinking about it. In the summertime, we get a lot more than that, which is terrific. And then all summer, all the bike racks in town are full. And a lot of times they're full of kids' bikes, and that always indicates to me that they've come from the path, because you will rarely see people with their children on the road. So Lexington is investing in bike path patrons. They see what opportunities are there that they're really tapping into, and there's a lot more opportunity to tap into. So a big one for us is it's a very big investment, many, many, many hours, I mean countless hours, were put into the start of a parklet. This parklet, this is the first one in the state of Massachusetts, was put in directly in front of our store. And it takes 2 parking spaces. So that means no revenues from those meters and all of the infrastructure that it takes to put in the parklet. So it goes directly in front of our store to allow for bike parking and tables and chairs. So people can sit out there, eat, enjoy. We have a very short, small sidewalk. So that has been key to us as a business. It's been amazing. They've been working to make the visitor center more path friendly, to make it more obvious that it's there, and a resource to people who are on the path. And there's a huge effort right now going on for streetscaping to make significant improvements to the streetscapes. And I've attended quite a few of these meetings and conversations, and bikes are at the crux of every conversation. And I'm impressed to see that like many of the consultants who are working on it have included bikes in this conversation. And a big reason why is I don't think they are necessarily cyclists themselves, is that they feel it from the town that this is really important. You have to include more bike parking, bike racks. They are considering at least 2 more parklets, which it's amazing. Those kinds of things will be great for Lexington. So, Shero, good. That is an excellent question. Shero is, they're typically arrows on the road, like they're big arrows painted down on the road, and then there's a little bike symbol. So what it means is, if there's a bike there, give that person that lane. But when there's not a bike, you're welcome to drive there. Separate from a bike lane where a car should never be driving in a bike lane. Yeah. So this is a picture of the parklet to give you an idea, where you have bikes here and people there, and it is full. From the moment they put it in the spring, clear through the summer, through the fall. They have to take it away, unfortunately, for winter snow plowing. But that was just wildly successful. I don't think anyone could have possibly imagined. And they did a lot of trip counts as well to support putting in the parklet. It was very impressive to see how many more trips there were after the parklet was put in. And one of the examples I like to use is one day the parklet was full, and someone came in and he was like, "Oh yeah, I see that you got the parklet. This is great. How exciting." He said, "I wanted to see how many people were in here," and our store was empty. It was neat, because that means everyone was in town shopping somewhere. And that means that they were going to the local sandwich shops, they were going to the shoe stores, they were going to jewelry shops. Who knows, maybe they were getting their nails done. Probably not. Never know. Power of the path. We, as we are looking to grow to open our second location, we are currently considering a location that is at the start of a bike path. So it definitely makes sense to us. It's been amazing for us to be in Lexington, to work with the town, to feel really supported as a business, and to be in another community that supports a path, to support businesses who are along in that same line of thinking. It's a win-win situation, and we've had a really great experience, so we hope to do that again. Thank you very much.
And our next speaker up is Milford Selectman Chairperson, William Buckley. So if you guys will all join me in welcoming him to our forum today.
Thank you, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here, and I'm thankful to be invited. I have to start off by saying I was at first a very, big skeptic of the process that Milford has gone through in the initial trail discussions that began in the 1990s. in part because I was raising young children, and I was on the school committee. I was a little bit concerned that resources would be diverted from the school efforts, and I was one of those people that wondered about the possibility of crime and some of the other things that were being discussed at the time. So I come at this initially being a skeptic, and I want to share that with you. You know, there was a point, I think, in my life, in this process of the trail, where somebody said to me the following: imagine a community in the not so distant future that's been completely built out. Imagine a conversation with a grandparent, with a child, where the grandparent is overheard saying, yes, this is what a forest looked like. Unbelievable? Maybe not. To prevent that build out and the overdevelopment of a community, it takes a great many things to come together, obviously. And I'm here, obviously, to talk about the importance of the public and political support that's necessary to take on an endeavor like this. I'm here to talk about the role of elected officials in that process and the role they played in the Milford Upper Charles Trail efforts, and more specifically, to create the right community connections between public and town officials. I think the single most important thing a local leader can do is to provide the structure and framework for citizens to become involved. A lot of people want to become involved, they're deeply committed to their community, but that structure and framework doesn't always exist. This is the mechanism for community-based decision and grassroots support. You know, obviously the caution is for folks that might view the organization as cumbersome, time-consuming, dictatorial, waste of time. They show that in their lack of participation and half-hearted effort. I say that because I want to come back to that later. In the 1990s, a grassroots effort began in Milford that had some difficulty implementing the Milford segment of the 27-mile Upper Charles Trail as it envisioned it. They came to realize that the only way to get the project off the ground was to have broader political support. They approached the Board of Selectmen, requested the support of the initiative, and to get it started by assigning the project to a town department. The Selectmen's decision to approve that committee's request was based on several factors. Town surveys indicated 75% of those responded were favorable to the concept of walking, hiking, and biking trails. Their previous endorsement of a feasibility study was another indicator. And their resolution to move forward with Milford's segment was another data point. Milford's open space and recreation plan identified the need for the development of walking, hiking, and biking trails as a key objective. It was helpful to us also that Framingham, Sherburne, Holliston, the Hopkins Board of Selectmen endorsed the impact feasibility study. The decision by Milford, and Milford Selectmen specifically, to assign the project to the Planning and Engineering Department, and more specifically, the town planner, was that watershed moment. And I say that for two reasons. At that point, the town was making a commitment. Its political leaders were making a commitment by providing that structure and framework. And I want to stop here because I want to focus on commitment. There's a very big difference between, obviously, commitment or involvement. So I'll remind you of the fable about making a breakfast and the chicken and the pig. Some of you have heard this, I'm sure. The chicken was certainly involved. But at the end of the day, the only one that was really committed was the pig. The second reason it was a big moment for Milford, in my opinion, is that it was assigned to the town planner, Reno DeLucia. They absolutely gave it to the right person. So that was the beginning. That's when Reno knew he didn't have just people involved or supporting, he had people committed. They threw the political support behind it. Now came the hard part. The challenge to develop broad-based support among the public. And some of them, like me initially, somewhat skeptical. To that end, Milford Board of Selectmen at that time appointed a Milford Charles Upper Trail Committee with 7 members that quickly expanded to 21. The committee, in its infinite wisdom, immediately selected the town planner, Reno DeLucia, as the chairman. At the outset, the committee decided to have an open and transparent process and to make those efforts to include the public as much as possible. And there were some initiatives behind that. To schedule and post meetings on a monthly basis and make that broadly available and known to the community. Make use of the certified receipt mail of invitations to abutters. Again, so that they could attend meetings and where their issues or concerns could be addressed. And then obviously to make sure they maintain that commitment as members of the Milford Board of Selectmen changed and political leaders changed, they continued to provide periodic reports to those boards. And then there was always the never-ending public support effort and communications effort to periodically provide interviews to the local radio station, the WMRC news director. These initiatives kept the Milford public well informed and continued to build a public trust that folks understood what people were trying to do here. As a result, in 1998, when it came time to petition the town meeting for the first appropriation and authorization to acquire some of the rights, the article passed nearly unanimously. Those outreach efforts were important in other ways as well. Although most abutters were supportive of the trail, a few had concerns. By having those abutters directly involved in the process, they gave the committee the opportunity to plan and design with their needs in mind. This early and constant public involvement resulted in town meeting approval of numerous petitions over the decades that it took, and with very wide margin and very little public opposition. In addition, the documented demonstration of public outreach and support were vital elements of securing federal and state funding. Through the TIP process, the Division of Conservation Service grants, finally robust public support provided the impetus for broadening broader political support. A similar approach was used to garner that political support at the state level. They knew they had the support of the local politicians, but it was very important that they gained that support of our state political leaders. Keeping that in mind, they knew that there would be problems along the way, and that keeping all of them involved were key to making sure that there was progress. To assure the Conservation Commission was on board, the Selectmen appointed Conservation Commission Chairman to the Trail Committee. Similarly, a member of the Milford Board of Selectmen was appointed to the committee. The Milford Water Company had granted substantial easement for the trail, so the Selectmen appointed their manager to the committee to assure the water company's interests were protected and adequately considered. Since the Park Commission would own the project and the responsibility for the maintenance, their designee was also given a seat on the committee. In addition, the police and fire chiefs were frequently consulted in the design process for their issues to knock down and to address some of those issues that people had regarding public safety. And then lastly, and most importantly, the committee recognized that without the FinCom committee or the Finance Committee as a key player, at the end of the day, they would need that support and recommendation in order to move forward with funding. And while they were somewhat apprehensive initially, because Finance Committee members always are when it comes to cost, they became involved and were very favorable on the recommendations at town meeting floor. The former state representative, Marie Parenti, was supportive during her tenure, as is our current state representative, John Fernandes. Our state senator, Richard Moore, and Congressman Richard Neal have also been supportive along the way. The support of those individuals proved to be invaluable, especially when we began to hit roadblocks. There was a period of time when all of that political support was necessary to jump some of the hurdles that were put in front of this committee. After more than 3 years negotiating with the National Grid for property rights, those negotiations came to an impasse. Reno and others pulled all of that support to have a sit down and face-to-face where all of the issues that National Grid had could be addressed, along with Federal Highway Administration, Mass Department of Transportation, and the town of Milford. The results of those long negotiations resulted in the property rights agreement that satisfied everyone. That example alone clearly illustrates why that political support, both locally and at the state level, are key. And I'm sorry, at the federal level when we had Representative Neal there. You know, I would say in the end, the development of the Milford Upper Charles Trail was a success story because of the political will to make decisions and get it started and provide the structure and framework for that group to begin. Provided a demonstrated community desire for multi-use trails, and lastly and most importantly, by having the right person to lead the effort, and that's Reno DeLuzio. Now Reno will tell you right away that he didn't have anything to do with it. It was the friends of the trail, it was the political support, and he'll be quick to tell you of all the people that were involved, because that's the type of person Reno is. You know, very few times, as being a member of the Board of Selectmen, do I get to stand and talk about somebody for a second, and I know this isn't about Reno, and I know Reno doesn't want to make this about Reno. But there are times when I can say to young people, if you want to look to people to be like, with true character and determination, there's a person you don't have to look far to be and to see. So nice job by everyone. I want to say that since that I was a convert, and only good things have happened, and we only hear good things from the perspective of the Milford Board of Selectmen, and I appreciate all the effort by Reno and everyone that's involved in helping to make the Milford Upper Charles Trail a great success. Thank you very much.
Our next speaker is from the Metropolitan Area Planning Council. He's the transportation planner, David Lautzenheiser.
I think you'll be able to see the slideshow if you sit in rows 1 or 2. So, no worries. David Lautzenheiser, MAPC. We're the regional planning agency for Metro Boston, so we provide technical assistance to the communities on transportation. Obviously, I'm here in assistance for trails, land use, housing, all sorts of issues related to our communities, and in particular, bringing our communities together in ways just as this trail is doing with the 5 communities that are involved in the trail. So, some of you, the interstate highway system is a highway system that was developed in the 1950s and built over the next 30 years. And what it's done is provided a connected highway system throughout the country. And so using that parallel, what we are doing at MAPC is trying to develop a connected trail system throughout Metro Boston. And that connected trail system would connect not only the 5 communities here, but connect these communities to the rest of the Boston region. Let me just give you an example of 3 of our projects that we're working on that relate to the Upper Charles Trail. One is trail inventory. We've been developing a complete trail inventory throughout the entire region. Every footpath, every public footpath, every rail trail, every walking, biking trail in the region. We're creating it in our GIS system, and we have it on this map here, some of the regional trails in the region. There's a website for that, and I'll show that at the end of the slideshow. And this is an inventory. First, we want to know what's out there. Before we got into this, there was really no regional or one consolidated place to have all of our trails visible, and that's now online. 2, I'm about to start a project to look at rail trail feasibility in the region. We have not done a comprehensive analysis of all the potential rail right-of-ways and other right-of-ways in the region to see where we can develop trails. Obviously, this trail the towns are working on, but we don't have that comprehensive look. There are a surprising number of rail corridors that are in the region that we have not really had a good handle on, and really want to know what's the potential. We want to find out every single opportunity to build a trail in the region and identify where that is, and provide a vision to the communities of these are your remaining corridors in the region that can be developed as trails. And so hopefully that could connect the dots to provide a connected network like the interstate highway system has done. So this is a map of our regional greenway plan. We have the Upper Charles Trail here, as you know. We have in the yellow, the Bay Circuit Trail, the Charles River Link. Also, one of the projects that we're working on now is the Aqueduct Trail System, working with the MWRA to develop 68 miles of connected trails throughout the Metro West region. Just yesterday, we had a section in Natick that was permitted, and that'll open, I guess officially open. And we now have, of the 68, I think we have about half of that is publicly open. Obviously, some sections have been used for many, many years, but it's connecting from Newton Center all the way out to Berlin, and also through the Sudbury Aqueduct, through Framingham, actually to Framingham Center, and all the way into Newton. So those provide east-west corridors. North-south, we have the Cochituate Rail Trail, the Bruce Freeman Rail Trail, obviously the Upper Charles, and the Bay Colony Rail Trail from Needham Center out to Millis. This map shows how it's all connected within downtown Boston, the T-lines. Again, the Aqueduct Trail System, the Mass Central Trail, Assabet River Trail, all these trail networks. Basically, the blue are rail trails, and the yellow are walking or hiking trails like the Bay Circuit, both existing and proposed. So we're creating this network where we, as much as possible, use separate trails, and in some cases, we'll go on low traffic streets or look for opportunities to carve out space in the roadway for a trail. A road that was built in the 60s as 4 lanes, but really should be 2 lanes because it provides a much better crossing for pedestrians. Who as a pedestrian wants to cross a 4-lane road? It's a lot easier to cross 2 lanes, much safer. And you don't change the capacity that much. So those are the types of opportunities for that. To look at our trail inventory online, trailmap.mapc.org, you can zoom in and out and have an aerial layer or a map layer or different background layers. So check that out, and thank you very much, and look forward to questions.
Okay, so David, you'd mentioned doing an audit and stuff. So one of the things that I'll just kind of interject here real quick is that as part of the MAPC a few years back, the Milford Trail actually started a trail audit. So annually, we now do a trail census that provides us with actual data points similar to some of the data points that Patria had mentioned in her presentation. And that information is available on our website, so milfordtrail.org. If you're interested, we do that annually, usually in the May time period. So just to kind of tie some of those pieces together for everyone. Before we move on to our next speaker, and we are going to save our questions. We're going to move the agenda a little bit here and save the question and answer period till our next speaker is complete. But as we transition here, I would like to introduce or ask Karen Spilka, who joined us a little bit after we did our intros earlier. Do you want to stand up, Karen? So everybody can know who you are. Excellent, thank you. And thank you for being here today. So with that said, I would like to introduce our next speaker, who will be talking about the regional support for shared use paths, Mass State Rep Tom Santacandro, who covers the Ashland area. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. I'm State Representative Tom Santacandro. I represent the towns of Ashland and Framingham. And I just have a few issues to address. And after I speak, I'm going to invite up State Senator Karen Spilka to also give a few words. I guess I have a few things to talk about. Did I lose this? I got to be in this one.
No, actually, you might have just hit the button. Let's
Okay.
check. There we go.
We're back on. Thank you, everybody, and thank you for all coming out today. This is really an important issue. And I think one of the things is that with this many people in the room, this is how things happen. This many involved and engaged people can change the world. And that's what this is all about. It's about doing that. They asked me to talk about regional planning kind of ideas. One of the things that I think is most important about this project and about a lot of the things that we've done in Ashland is how we've made Ashland a very livable community and a community that people want to live in, and actually a community that people want to come in and visit. I think one of the things when we talk about green communities, we talk about the environment, we talk about open space, we see some of the decisions, some of the great decisions that Ashland have made in the last few years. We don't tie it to economic development. Somehow the environment and green ideas are over here, jobs and economic development over here, and they're not related to each other. When in fact we know they are related to each other. I think I'm back on again. They're clearly related to each other, and one of the things is when you talk about Massachusetts and you say, why is our economy strong? And we went through this deep, deep recession that affected probably everybody in this room in one way or another. Was very hard here in Massachusetts. But one of the things that we saw happen here in Massachusetts is, even though it was very tough for all of us, we did much better than the rest of the country. A whole lot better than the rest of the country. Part of that is because of our educated workforce, right? Many of us know that people come here, they locate their companies here because they know when the company's located here and they go to and hire their employees, there's going to be a pool of people that are well educated and well trained and able to work for those companies to help that company grow. The other thing I need you to think about, and the tie to economic development, is, well, it's good to have all these people that work here, but if I'm running the company and I want people here, I think about, well, would I want to live here myself? Do I want to live here? Are the schools good? Is the environment good? Is it a livable community? Is it a place that I want to be? Does it have two... Boy, this is really temperamental today. Does it have 2 state parks? Does it have a town forest? Does it have open meadowland? Those are types of things that people, sometimes you take it for granted, but people come here and people live here because this is a very livable community. I don't know if you guys need this or not. I think it's got something to do with me. Are you recording this or something, or can I just speak?
On TV.
Scotch tape would be a good idea. But anyway, I think it's important for everybody in this room to consider how important a livable community is to economic development. Because we have to, people tied to how livable the place is really ties over to the economics. That's not exactly what Joel asked me to speak on today. He asked me to talk about regional initiatives. And there are a number of regional initiatives that we've done in the past, very small regional initiatives. One of them is to look at cooperation between Ashland and I believe it's Hopkinen on fire safety types of things. The other issue was, it's a very minor project too, but again, it's looking at the health, at the state sanitary code and looking at health inspections. We've also had some small money on that. I think the political reality of that is, given historically of where we are, why we like to segregate ourselves into these small communities is sort of the parochial nature of New England itself, where we have these small communities. Essentially we have 351 school districts, we have 351 superintendents, 351 chiefs of police, fire. We have all this local control. Being New Englanders, we don't like to give that up. So I think politically there's a challenge, but for events, for issues like this where we're looking at cooperation more than sort of taking things away, we're looking at growing together these trails to do that. I think this is an easy go from the regional nature. The other piece I wanted to talk about, which wasn't on my notes to say, was how important it is. You're all here, you're all involved. I was invited here by Joel Arbeitman, who really made an effort to make sure I got here, even though I had some other things. I actually called him yesterday and said, do I have to go? But I think the important lesson here is that each and every one of you has the ability to change the world. You have the ability to reach out, to band together, to talk to your neighbors. That's what can make a difference. That's how these things change. And lots of the folks that I see in this room, especially the folks from Ashland, these are the folks that have been involved in green communities, been involved in Warren Woods, been involved in a lot of things and a lot of preservation rights here in Ashland. We're making a difference. We have the, I can't even think of the name of it, the farmer's market. We have also the gardens. We have all these things happening that make Ashland a great place to live. And that's really important. If my colleague, the state senator Karen Spilka, who I am dressed up, and I am too. Those of you that know me, I very, very rarely dress up. I was at one conference this morning. I have to go to another conference. The esteemed senator is usually way better dressed. Not that she's not beautiful today.
Dressed. If you cannot read this, it's a ride that my husband and I did with our kids when they were little, and we had them in the little attachment in the back of our bikes. It was the Ride for Hunger tour to Boston at the time. I don't think they do that. They do a walk now. But this is from 2000.
This is your state senator, Karen Spilka.
Thank you. And it is a pleasure to work with Tom and a great team of legislative delegation, whether it be John Fernandez or Carolyn Dykema or Dave Linsky or any of those out in the Metro West. We really do work well together, so it's a pleasure to be here. And I'll just talk for a few moments because bicycling and improving the quality of life for the Metro West are two love of my lives, I guess. I don't know how else to put it. We are a bicycling family. In fact, more than 30 years ago, my husband asked me to marry him on a bike ride across the Cape. He wore me down, but I have no regrets. And actually, he's, I think, bicycling right now on his studded tires on the lake, the frozen lake. So the Pan Mass Challenge, this will be the 20th year. There's a lot of things that are really important to us in this area. So I was very happy many years ago to work with actually Rep. Paula Scocco to get $800,000 for the rail trail in Holliston. And they have done a wonderful job. It took a while to, again, yes, I mean, it was a big team effort, and that's what I think Tom Senecandro was saying and everybody else up here. It takes a lot of people, but it is doable. And just to envision combining and collaborating together and then connecting the fabric of all of these communities, not only the ones that are here, but beyond. And I love what Tom Senecandro said, but the two things that I want to add, that we do have some big initiatives for regionalization. The Metro West RTA that was created in 2006 originally just had a few communities. It is now 14 communities and connects the fabric of those communities. That is a big regionalization effort, as well as the Metro West Tourism and Visitors Bureau, also connecting the fabric of the community's lives together in different ways, but it really, the whole goal is to increase the quality of life for all of the residents and economic development and job creation. And both of those, I consider major initiatives, have been very successful with that. The RTA, the buses have been traveling, taking not only seniors and disabled, but employees, and our employers rely upon it. And then the tourism and travel is literally creating jobs in this region. So support them whenever you have the opportunity. But I think that this regionalization effort, and particularly with rails, is a really important effort, and it is getting a lot more recognition on the state. So this is very, very timely as well. It will improve the environment, and just, if you picture an interlocking network of rail trails around here and all through Metro West, to be able to not only have people bicycling, but rollerblading and walking, all ages, both children and our seniors, and to really have it become an integral part of our community, connecting it, and eventually how wonderful it would be if somebody from Milford could commute on the rail trail all the way to Framingham, or eventually with the Bruce Freeman Rail Trail all the way to Lowell. Just think of that, and that is a possibility. I really do believe it. But again, a lot of it depends upon people banding together to make it a priority. And I know by you being here on a Saturday morning, these issues are priorities for you. I think that there are other more broader ways to even look at regionalization. The aqueduct issue that was mentioned, I worked with Representative Chris Walsh from Framingham on getting the MWRA to open up the aqueducts. We're now looking at ways to fund at the crossings to make sure that they're safer as well. So in the future, if we need your support, we may be contacting you, because I see this as a reciprocal effort where your delegation and the legislative delegation, whether it be reps or senators, we need to know what's going on so that we can support you, not only emotionally by coming to these meetings, but financially, so that if an opportunity arises in a bill, in a bonding bill, in a funding bill, if we have a better idea of what our communities are doing, then we can sometimes insert some language for either a study or for funding for some planning or design or even construction of the rail trail. So, these are things that again, we need to continue to work together to be a united force, and I look forward to continuing to working with you to create an interlocking network of rail trails and continuing to improve the quality of our lives. Thank you very much.
So thank you so much, Karen. That was wonderful. And Tom, thank you for being here. I know you worked very much to squeeze us in this morning. So Karen, did your shirt say kryptonite on the back? Are you truly a superhero?
Yes, at times I feel it. After a long day at the State House.
Great. Thank you. So, this is the point in the presentation or in our agenda where we are going to open it up for questions for the speakers. Yes?
I have a question when you're ready.
Oh, okay, great. We're going to open it up for, so you'll be my first question. We're going to open it up for speakers, questions and answers from our keynote speakers thus far. And then we'll have our 5 towns give their updates, and then we'll have another Q&A for that section of the program. So, your question, please.
Yeah, my name is Mary Wyckoff, and I own the railroad bed almost from the Milford line.
Hang on one second.
Okay, sorry. My name is Mary Wyckoff, and I own the railroad bed almost from the Milford line to Granite Street in Hopkinton. So I have 18 abutters. It's about a little over, around a half a mile long. And the town has showed interest in purchasing it, but I've never gotten any confirmation, or every time I try to ask someone from the Rails and Trails that I think I know, I get bits and pieces. They say, well, it's been appraised, but and this is an odd question, but I'd kind of like to know if they're going to buy it before I'm dead. I know they're not God, but you know.
Thank you for that question. I'm not sure who would like to take that question.
We've been trying to work to get on the warrant for this town meeting and an effort to buy your land, but I'm not sure that we've actually got through the politics of that. We've been held back, but we would like nothing more to do that. I've been trying to make that a priority for the last year.
So I shouldn't sell it to someone else yet?
No, you shouldn't sell it.
I've had a couple of offers, that's why I'm asking.
We're very much interested in it. I apologize to you for not maybe being in better contact, but
Yeah.
it's a slow. They're just playing many kind of political hurdles, and
Right.
that's all I can say. But since the time when you led an effort for a hike by the Hopkinton Trail
Right.
School not too long, well, it is quite a while ago now.
Yeah, and about 10 or 15 years ago, the Hollis and Rails and Trails talked to me about being interested too, so it's been a long time.
Yeah, but we've never left side of that, but I can't tell you whether or not it made it to the warrant yet. I actually don't know myself
Okay,
yet.
but at least it's on track.
That's right.
Thank you.
Right. Thank you, Ken Parker from the Hopkinton Trail Committee for taking that question, and thank you, Mary, for asking it. Do we have, and actually this is a great forum for these kinds of questions as we're making connections across our regional structure. So, are there other questions? Questions for Patria, questions for David, questions for Karen? Yes, we have one in the back here. Pardon me while I kind of meet you halfway.
My name is Chris Hopper. I live right here in town, but I'd just like to know how I can become one of the crew guys for the guys that go in there with the chainsaws and all that. So I would like to leave my information just to be a source for you and us.
Excellent. So, definitely, if you haven't signed in, we have some sign-up sheets in the hallway. That's a great place to leave your information. Each town is sharing the sign-up sheet, so I think that we kind of set it up specifically for each town. So that's a great way. Definitely websites. Hit the websites. Contact us. Facebook is a great alternative. And let me ask for the rest of the team if they have other thoughts that they want to share. I'm going to scoot back here. Okay, so we have other questions. Okay, I'm going to go here first.
For the aqueduct system, a lot of that is broken apart by some structures or just unpassable remnants and so forth. Is there any plan to connect certain areas? Are there plans for street crossings, maybe just to put 2 lines across? Is there any, just in terms of that aqueduct system?
Thanks for that question.
Yes, absolutely. We've developed a map of the entire system, and in many places the aqueduct goes in deeper tunnels or it's disconnected, and we've typically identified either local roads or town conservation lands to make that connection. So there will be a continuous trail throughout the system, even in the breaks. So we're looking at the property ownership now and so forth to sort that out. I just want to make a comment on the previous comment on volunteering to do labor. We talk about getting state money to build trails, and And that's a double-edged sword. Sometimes it's a great thing to have the state or federal money to develop the trails. That's a long process. Sometimes if the trail is very simple, like I think what was done in Hopkinton here in the downtown Bud High School, is to not go after the state money, but to look locally, because you may be able to build sections of the trail much faster if you have that ownership or control of that right of way. So you know, there's no one solution, but sometimes it's quicker to get those volunteers out with the chainsaws and get that trail passable. And then once you have that passable surface, then you really can energize the community to, yeah, we want to pave it, and so maybe that goes to the next step. So don't always think of the gold standard, waiting 10 years for that state money. Again, look at the individual situation to see what's best, but sometimes there's a quicker, faster way to do it. So think about that in your development.
David, do you have a question?
I'm Stanley Dana from Ashland. Ashland doesn't have a lot of woods that are available for paths. So I guess 126 would be a part of our plan. We have an improvement plan for 126 where hopefully we're taking advantage of state funds. And my question is, can you help influence that so we can get curbed bike lanes in that area? Thank you.
Well, absolutely, it's important for the towns to provide that infrastructure. Right? Just driving in today, seeing all the runners out on 135 because they're training for the marathon, and there's no sidewalk, there's no place, there's no bike lanes, there's no shoulder, and it's critical. You know, I don't know whether MassDOT has that control over the town, but it's critical that the towns program into their funding, their Chapter 90, which is their road money, to actually, you know, when that street is repaved, that they provide those accommodations for cyclists and for pedestrians. So I think that's critical in terms of your question about the woods. We're trying to map. I know Joelle's got lots of ideas, and I think there's, you know, there are ways to make those connections, and let's draw them out, let's map them, and once you have them out there as a vision, then you can show your selectmen and so forth, and keep that idea alive. So I think it's really important.
Thanks, David. I think we had, okay, we've got a few other questions. I think we had one question right here. So, quick question.
Thank you. I have a question and an answer. How many organizations and individuals here would like to have the commitment of 1,200 men ready to go to work to help you raise money for your charitable organizations in your community? The answer, I represent the 15th Masonic District, which ranges all 13 lodges, 1,200 men, all the way from Maynard to Milford to Ashland, Holliston, and we have formed a not-for-profit organization, an umbrella organization. Oops, I forgot to push this button to put the time in here. I don't want to take more than 1 minute. Okay, the clock is running. And the organization is an umbrella organization. It is run by Masons. The next meeting of that organization is going to be on Sunday, March the 16th at the Masonic Hall in Milford, Massachusetts from noon to 2, plenty of parking. I've been reminded that we must crawl before we walk. This is a formative stage of developing a walkathon using the trails. And the idea is to bring awareness to your needs and to awareness to the need to get out there and exercise and to be a part of a much larger community. I am so impressed with the speakers that have been here tomorrow. It's so encouraging and so inspirational. Just to know that we have some experience in the last 7 years. We've raised $86,000 worth of golf outing. That just isn't enough. That all of that money was distributed to local charities. I mean, to 501c3 charities. We are working. Time is up. Come see me. I have everything you need right here.
Thank you, Arlen. Okay, I know we saw a few other hands up here for questions. Excuse me as I just kind of sneak by the camera.
Hi, my name is Josh Ostroff. I'm a selectman from Natick, and I have a couple of reasons for being here today. I love the Upper Charles Trail. I've really enjoyed it in Milford and Holliston, and can't wait to make a 22-mile loop in a few days. And I want to give a particular shout out as a member of the Cochituate Rail Trail Committee in Natick. Bob Wydick has been a great resource, and we've really appreciated him for all the advocacy that he does. So, as a Natick selectman, I'm enthusiastic about our project in Natick. Another reason I'm here, though, is just to recognize, first, the volunteers that help make these projects happen from the ground up are indispensable. But it's very expensive to construct transportation projects in Massachusetts. And the other hat I wear is outreach director for an organization called Transportation for Massachusetts. And we're a statewide coalition, including the Metropolitan Area Planning Council, the Public Health Association, other regional planning authorities around the state. And I want people to understand that the funding to help provide the infrastructure support for trails is really at risk. The legislature made a great move in funding transportation, including trails, in the last the last year. But the billions of dollars the state needs to spend to bring its infrastructure to state of good repair is at risk. There will be a ballot question in November to repeal gas tax indexing, and that actually would undermine a lot of the things we need to do in order to get safely to work and to school and for people to respond to emergencies and everything else. So if anyone is interested in learning more about how to participate in our coalition's work, just find me. I'll be here until noon. Really appreciate the opportunity to speak. And if any of our legislators who have been such great advocates for investing in trails and other infrastructure want to comment, that's great. But I just wanted to thank you for having this great event. I'm so enthusiastic to see over 100 people in this room and the great work that we'll do as communities to make it easier to get around. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thanks for joining us today. We really appreciate it and for sharing your thoughts. I also, before we take another question, I just do want to mention that we have Representative John Fernandez who's in the audience today. John, do you want to put your hands up? There you go. Great. So thanks for coming out and joining us today. So just again, in the interest of helping everyone to make connections, this is great to be able to point people out and let you all know who they are, what they look like, and put the face to a name. I think I saw a question in the back of the room here, so pardon me as I kind of walk back here.
Hi, I'm Rusty Crow. I'm from Ashland. And I see this red line for the Upper Charles Trail going through Ashland, and I'd like to change that to a green line. I'm wondering what has been done as far as an inventory of properties, figuring out the exact route, and what needs to be done, and how do we make that happen?
Good. Thank you. Great question. I'm not sure if that's a question for you, Joel, if it's a question for David or one of our other distinguished speakers. Guess those would be things that might be covered a little later on, or potentially that's a parking lot issue, something that we add to our parking lot board for addressing in the future. Sound good? Okay, do we want to restate that to make sure we?
We do have the town manager. Is he still there?
Do you want to be on the spot?
Well, I can be.
Oh, go ahead.
Okay. There you go. Thank you.
Sure, I never mind being on the spot, but I don't have an answer for Preston's question. But one of the reasons I'm here, obviously, is to learn more about how do we make this a reality. It's something that I've spoken to Joel about on a number of occasions. I'm a big advocate for this type of things, obviously to collect information, obviously to take it to our board and find out how do we turn these things that are red into green and be part of this great network for Ashland. So we don't have an answer yet, but I think all working together and collaborating together and learning from others' experience on how to turn red into green, I think will be helpful to us as a community so that we can be part of this great network. So I think that's the direction that I think the community would like to go, and we just need to obviously learn from everybody else's experience on how to make that a reality.
Great. Thank you.
I'm Sarah Hines. I'm from Ashland. I'm on the Redevelopment Authority, and we do have an effort going forward which is the rebuild and the redesign of Pond Street with 126 in Ashland, and there's going to be a community process March 25th at the Warren School on Fruit Street. And we hope that people from Ashland will show up, because this is how we get this input in about walkability. We know we want to accommodate bicycles, we don't exactly know how and whatever, but we hope you all become engaged in that so we can have a nice corridor through there that will work, and we'd be happy if Holliston wanted to sort of get involved with their end of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. So, again, more connections to be made here. Another question across the room here.
Hi, Todd Clark from Hopkinton. My question is for Milford, who's been through this already. Ken's already mentioned that the politics are potentially getting in the way in Hopkinton. So Reno and Selectmen, what were the moments, where did, like from a Selectman's perspective, where exactly did you switch from being a skeptic to being a supporter? Was it an ideological change, or was it kind of leverage or whatever?
Hold that answer, here comes the mic.
Well, as I said earlier, I think it was that point where the Milford Board of Selectmen at that time created a structure, an organization, a structure by which to legitimize and provide a foundation of support to the community. Back to the discussion when I said the difference between the chicken and the pig, and who's involved and who's committed. There's where the true commitment began. And so I would say, from my perspective, the single watershed moment was when the Board of Selectmen said, we're going to take this on as a town department, we're going to put Reno in charge, and here's the planning function, and here's the support, here's the umbrella that gave it that legitimacy. I don't know if it's the model that works in other communities, but if a community is having difficulty getting traction, that's absolutely what I would look for in going forward. So I guess that's the best answer I have. I don't know if that helps. Yes.
I'll add just a little anecdote to that. Bill wasn't involved at the beginning of the project some 15 years ago. And the selectmen at that point, they were all skeptical. But when I presented my first strategy plan, I said, look, if we don't at least try to acquire the corridor, then all options are lost for the future. You may not decide to carry on, but at least we'll have an asset. We'll spend some money, we'll get property rights, and we'll have an asset. You could sell those assets later if you want. So we set the bar very low. Let's see what it takes to get property rights, and then we'll take it to the next step. The next step was, as Bill had pointed out, public support started to grow, and the selectmen now started to get more and more enthusiastic about it. It was a process. And then the next step was, let's go forward and build phase one. In fact, the question was, we're not in Lexington, we're not a historical community, we're not Cape Cod, we don't have those kinds of attractions to attract people to a bike trail in a highly developed blue-collar community. So we said, let's try phase one. Modest investment, federal state funds were coming in, we're pretty confident of that. And so we built phase one, and man, the contractor called me one day, said, you got to keep these people off the trail, I got to finish this thing. so I got to put backup mirrors in my machinery so I don't bump into people. So it really then started to build on itself, and that's how it grew to where we are today.
I see one more question. Lots of questions. This is good stuff.
Hi, my name is Matt Marshquist from Ashland. The red line that we see on the map, I'm just wondering how that was determined. So if people are looking at that now and saying, oh, that kind of runs through my property, what is the process from taking that red line to actually making the final trail map in town? I guess that would be for David, probably.
Thanks. David, one more your way.
Actually, I don't know much about the Ashland Quarter, and that's something I plan on engaging in this year, absolutely. Because we know about the rest of the quarter for the most part, but Ashland is that mysterious piece. Well, I think that line was drawn to show the former railroad right-of-way, so probably your property abuts are part of that former right-of-way. So that's where that line was drawn. And so we really need to engage in a process of looking at all the properties on that right-of-way, looking at talking with the owners and looking at opportunities for either an easement or acquisition, or, you know, it depends on what the property owner is interested in. There are opportunities with the recreational statute in Massachusetts that you know, you can allow public access on that right of way with no liability issues on your end with free access. So there is a way for the public to access private right of way without liability. So that's possible if the property owner is willing. So you know, you can build the trail incrementally. You can open pieces as a stone dust path or something very simple, and improve that later on as public support grows for that. So there's no one answer, but there needs to be a comprehensive assessment of that corridor and seeing where this can be done based on the realities of the physical constraints and the property constraints.
Hi. There are a couple of different possibilities as to the ways that we would route trails through Ashland. And the very most important thing for everybody to understand, people here, and maybe, you know, we're hoping to get the tape from Milford Cable and show this in Ashland as well. And so people who are watching this on TV, the important thing is that no trail is cast in concrete or any other material at this point. Red lines or just somebody's showing that maybe there's a way to move a trail through Ashland. I've got a plan in the back of the room that you can look at. It's subject to analysis. It's subject to meeting with all the members of the community, our community leaders, and trying to make an assessment of what's best. And I can assure you that to the degree that we have to do as few land takings or easements or sharing properties, you know, our goal is to take advantage of as much as we can that's already public land, so that the costs are less, the imposition on the community is less, and so on. You know, I would just encourage you to get involved, stay involved. You know, everybody has a voice in this, and participating as part of the planning process is what can make it work for everybody. You know, that's the ultimate goal, is the cheapest, best way to get it done, and give everybody a voice. Thanks.
Thanks, Joel. I'm sure there may be some other questions in the audience, but at this particular point, I'd like to move over to make sure that we give all of our towns an opportunity to tell you more specifically what's happening in their towns, from what's already transpired, what's coming, and talk a little bit more in the context of the benefits of a regional approach. So with that said, oops. Okay, so we have, we'll actually be hearing from each of the 5 towns, and this is a view of the people that you see sitting here that will actually be speaking today. So the first person up is Reno DeLuzio with the Milford Trail Committee. He's the chairperson, whom we've already heard so much about. All true, all good stuff. Reno?
Thank you, Pat. Thank you, everybody. This is a great turnout. Really is encouraging to see so many people now getting more and more involved. That was our strategy from the beginning. If one town could do it, it will tend to grow, and this is ample proof that's happened. So thank you very much for coming, and please keep supporting your committee and help your political leaders to see the light. In any event, I'm going to talk about. In the back of the room, there is a laptop computer with a slideshow of what we have on the ground in Milford. So I'm not going to talk about that. I'm going to focus on the last mile that's under construction now. We have a 6.5-mile trail from border to border, from near the Hopkinton town line to the Holliston town line, and we have 5.5 miles paved, and we're now working on the last 1 mile, and that's that. That's this orange section here. I don't know if you can see that. It's called the missing link. You can see we have red, and then orange in the middle. I won't get into the story of how all that developed, but that's what we're dealing with now, is that 1 mile. And the statistics of our trail project, we had the project in 3 phases. Phase 1 was East Main Street to Deer Street, which is a paper road off of Route 85. And then we have Phase 2, which was taken to Deer Street to the Hopkinton town line, then from Route 109 to Holliston, and then we have a small spur that goes from Main Street to the rear of the senior center to accommodate the seniors to get right on the trail from their backyard. And now we're working on phase 3, which is 1 mile. Now this is the trailhead at the commuter parking lot across from the Sacred Heart Church. Up is to Hopkinton, down is to Holliston. Now this may be an eye test for those in the back, but basically this is an aerial that I'll try to lead you through this 1 mile section. The trailhead I mentioned is here, and for a point of reference, there's the Sacred Heart Church on East Main Street. So there is a walking area through the parking lot, across the intersection on East Main Street, down Beach Street, and down Mount Pleasant Street, all on sidewalk. And this is a walk-only area. It's not wide enough to ride bicycles, so we have it signed for walk only. And this is the construction start at Mount Pleasant Street, and it runs, you can see, through very highly developed, congested neighborhoods. It continues on through and ends at the Plains Plaza on Route 10916, and it continues on from there to here's where here's where one more time. Here's where it breaks out behind Hannaford's supermarket. Now this is Veterans Memorial Drive, and we have an existing sidewalk on one side, and the phase 3 trail is going to build a similar 6-foot wide paved sidewalk on the other side. So we have here to Route 109 two-way traffic in and out on either side of 495. So that's the 1 mile route we're talking about. If any of you visit Friendly's, it's right at the corner, and this piece here, this sidewalk here, and the trail to Holliston is completed. So all the blue is completed, and all the pink sort of is for phase 3 construction. Now we had a number of challenges in this project. The first one dealt with a Catholic elementary school parking lot right off of Mount Pleasant Street, and they have a license with the town to use the rail bed as part of their playground. So now we had to negotiate with the diocese and the administration of the school and the pastor and everybody you could think of to work on an arrangement where they could preserve their playground, but we could still get the trail through that area. So you can see the railroad bed is quite wide. It runs from right at that building to somewhere in this banking. It's about 66 feet wide, and they had swings in here and everything else, and you can see the security fence they have across the top. So what we did was, I'll get on to the next one. Their primary concern was the safety of the children from all sorts of things. And so we went around the track with parent teachers and everybody else to secure that playground after we were finished. What we did was we narrowed the trail with a paved width in that area from 10 feet to 8 feet. So we only took about 12 feet of the 66-foot wide right-of-way for the trail and left the rest of it coupled with the lot they own next door to preserve 90% of their playground. So they were happy with that, and then we worked out a security fencing from the stairs of the school down across the trail, and then a security fence now along the trail with proper gates for maintenance vehicles and for the children to get in and out. So now they were very happy with this when it was all done, but that was over a year process to get to that agreement. Now the next crossing is at Haywood Street. Keep this drainage outflow in mind, and this is what we're dealing with now from Haywood Street to about 950 feet within the Hannaford shopping plaza. And it's basically neglected old rail bed, and it's all underwater. So the challenge here was an environmental permitting one. This is because of many decades of non-maintenance of drainage and so forth. In fact, the drainage, part of it flowed out under Hannaford's parking lot, and then when the town swapped land, and the rail bed was pretty flat going out to 109, but the town swapped land so that plaza could be developed, and so that drainage to that parking area failed. So it had nowhere to go east, and I guess southwest. The grade wasn't proper, so it all flooded, and then over the years it reverted to wetlands. So now we were stuck with a very significant, or could be potentially significant, wetlands permitting problem. But then we got environmental engineers in there, and they properly classified the wetlands in various grades and categories, so such that each could be dealt with separately. And to make a long story short, it was all worked out. We finally ended up with only 1,000 square feet of wetlands that had to be replicated, and we had a design that satisfied the Conservation Commission, the Department of Environmental Protection, and believe it or not, the Army Corps of Engineers got into this act as well, and satisfied them as well. So that's the condition of which we're dealing with. The next, and there's just another picture of it, but you might see here that on the right-hand side here, there's a pretty steep banking. Remember, the rail bed went out this way, and now we got to come up this way. So now, from this elevation that's underwater to where we have to end up at Veterans Memorial Drive is a 20-foot difference in elevation. That's higher than this ceiling. So we got to come up 20 feet in 900 feet or so and still meet ADA slope requirements. That was another challenge. This is the Hayward Street crossing after they did some filling. Now this is where we are now, and this piece of machinery is about 950 feet short of the breakout point at Veterans Memorial Drive. And we are now making that grade in 2 steps. We'll come up 5% grade, flatten out, and then come up another 5% grade and get us out to Veterans Memorial Drive. So those were the whole, every segment of this trail had its challenges. Every one could have been a showstopper. But with determination, cooperation, engineering, given enough money, can do anything. We solved all of the problems. That's just a message. Don't get to the point where you see an obstacle in front of you and give up because you don't think there's a way around it. Believe me, we came to those roadblocks many times over the 15 years that we've been working on this project, and we've been able to overcome all of them. It takes time, effort, determination, some money, and no question about that, but it can be done. So I encourage you to continue on. We have 2 models now that you can draw on for all the war stories and experiences. Both Milford and Holliston has got a lot of experience behind this, and we're happy to help you in any way we can. So thank you very much.
So, anything can be accomplished. Keep that in mind. Alrighty. So our next speaker today, Robert Wydnick with the Holliston Trail Committee, the chairman of the Trail Committee, I might add.
For the Holliston section, we had a Trails Forum last year, and it was, is this on? Can you hear me? Oh, okay. Last year we had a Trails Forum, and I was very happy to report that we had finally acquired bits of the right-of-way. We didn't have enough money to buy all the right-of-way, but we were able to acquire, with the money that we did have, pieces of that right-of-way. And so I was reporting last year's forum. It was a very good year because we were finally able to deal with the railroad company, CSX, to be able to acquire the parcel. And then this year, I'm really happy to report that all the land that we have purchased, we've been able to make improvements on, not to the extent of all of it all stone dust, but very close to it. And I have to give thanks to Herb Brockert. I know he's here today. I hope he's still here. Thank you, Herb. Herb coordinated with all the different contractors that were needed to get, and all the volunteers, coordinated that to be able to get us to put down the stone dust, and he did it all in a remarkable amount of time. We were able to get it all finished before the winter. A big section of it from I'll point out, from the center of town outward. So it was very thankful for all Herb's work at getting that to go. But this is the overall map showing the entire 27-mile loop trail. And what I'll focus in on is just the section Holliston, the border of Holliston is shown in the dark black in the center. And so zooming up a little bit, what I had mentioned is that we have purchased 2 pieces and we got 1 piece donated. This was from CSX. So what you see in magenta are the parcels that we own. And then the other 2 pieces are shown in the yellow are parcels that we just lease from CSX. So if we had all the money available, we would have been able to purchase it directly from CSX, but we didn't have the money. And so we were only able to purchase those 2 pieces by themselves. As I say, we reported that we had a very good year this year. Not only did we construct significant improvements, stone dust exists in this section, and then another section, and then we have a little bit that connects to the Milford Trail, where we just put down a gravel base, and we'll be putting down the stone dust this spring. But it's we were able to get that, and this year what we're working on, we got some money through the Community Preservation Community Preservation Committee. We were able to get some funding to start. The next phase is to try to acquire the land. So once we acquired the land, we were able to put in the improvements in less than a year. And like I say, thanks to Herb. But it does happen. And so what we're doing is a little bit different than Milford. Milford is putting down the paved surfaces. They've gone through the Mass DOT process of getting a paved surface, whereas we're doing a 10-foot wide stone dust trail. And I'm happy to report that there's been a study nationwide looking at the accessibility requirements, and this type of a trail, a stone dust trail, when it's constructed properly, which this is considered a ADA type trail. In other words, it's a firm, stable surface. And so we're happy to report that we can call this an accessible trail, the sections that we've constructed. And so that's the stone dust surface. It's at least 10 feet wide, and I know Herb was a lot generous with a lot of the sections that made it actually quite a bit wider than that. As Karen Spilka had mentioned, the state senators and representatives were able to secure some money for us. We have had good sources of funding from various locations. We used the $800,000 for some of the acquisitions. We've gone through the DCR process, Recreational Trails Grant Program. You can get up to a maximum of $50,000 a year. So we were able to construct 2 miles of section of the rail trail with the Recreational Trails Grant Program. And then we've had all kinds of other support from Holliston Town Meeting, Newcomers Club. REI is an outfitter in Framingham, Natick, I guess it is, had provided us some money. You know, we asked for $5,000. They said, well, what can you do with $10,000? You know, that's a good problem to have. And then we've had some other various sources through the years. We've also had the support of local businesses, donations of services, donations of money, donations of trees. Bobby Blair's here. The Downtown Marigold Project donated a gazebo, and various other organizations. But we have a good amount of people who have donated services and materials and money for the project through that. We've been keeping track of how many volunteer hours that we've had through that. We've had over 3,300 hours of cleanups. This is just labor on the trail itself. We have 6.7 miles of trail in the town, in the town, and of that we've had 3,300 hours of labor, cutting trees, raking the leaves. In this case, we were blowing the leaves, getting it in preparation for the gravel installation. We have worked with the Lions Club, gotten a lot of volunteers. They come out and they'll provide 15 people to help clean up the trail. This is automatically going. We've had scout projects where they've come by and they've helped us out quite a bit in terms of clearing the trail, removing some of the ties. We've had kiosks placed, some signage placed, landscape improvements as we've gone along to make some of the visibility areas a little bit better from a landscape standpoint. We've had issues where we've had bridges. You can see it's a very dangerous situation where the old bridge was eroding away and it created a dangerous situation. And again, once again, Herb Brockert out there with his machinery we were able to make a suitable temporary bridge. We did get some funding for a permanent solution for that section of the bridge, but we were able to make improvements on that section. This is the condition that it was. It was a very difficult surface, especially in the wintertime. It accumulates the water at the various locations, but we were able to make it a nice 10-foot wide surface. We purchased one of the pieces in the center of the town because of the, this is amazing, in the center of the town because of the drainage problems that we had through one of the tunnels. And we not only had Herb Brockert helping out putting in some of the drainage structures, there's a drainage piping network through that tunnel, but we also engaged the mosquito control project. And so no money to the town, we were able to fix a lot of the drainage channels that existed along the way. So it doesn't always have to be purchased money or funds. It can be volunteers that could use the mosquito control project. There we go again. Similar situation, mosquito control. This is a section we actually don't own, but we lease it from CSX. We were able to get the mosquito control in there, and you see what was impassable through most of the year is now looking like this. And it's granted not yet, it's not ready for prime time. It's not a good surface, it's a little bit rough for bikes and that sort of thing, but at least we've dried out the situation, so now it's a passable trail itself. And the rewards that we see, that was a group of people that just they're celebrating their birthday party by having a bunch of the kids out on the trail. There's a running group that uses the trail. You get to see people, fall time out there walking, enjoying that. In the downtown area, we have the ability to have a little bit of a wider area for a park. As I mentioned, the gazebo is donated, and we have a little park area, and there was we have concerts now at the park where the right-of-way is a little bit wider. As I mentioned, we just completed over the fall a section. This thing automatically moves without touching. There's a section in the center of town, as I mentioned, that tunnel, which was almost impassable before. We had a first night activity where we had stations set up along the way to get people to warm. The scouts came in and they cooked hot dogs and heated up cider and that sort of thing in the tunnel itself. And it turned out to be a great function that we had first night. The next steps that we have is, as I said, we're moving forward to try to acquire the next, those pieces as shown in yellow, about 4 miles left of trail to be acquired. As I mentioned, we are doing interim trail improvements on those sections, so we've been keeping them up or open, cutting the trees back and the vegetation back, and we're going to be smoothing some of the rail bed, and then eventually we'll be installing more gravel and keep the ongoing maintenance of those trails. And that's it. Okay, thanks.
I'm afraid to touch any button.
I know.
So our next speaker is Ken Parker, the chairman of the Hopkinton Trail Committee.
So I'm the chairman of the Hopkinton Upper Charles Trail Committee. So in Hopkinton, we have a fairly confused political situation.
Use the mic. Use the mic.
In Hopkinton, we have a fairly confused political situation. Just to go through a little of the history of it. So the next slide here, this is a listing of our committee members. We are an official town committee, but we only got instituted a couple of years ago. So there are several other members in my committee that are here. I know Jane Moran is here. I'd like her to stand up. We've got Barry Rosenblum, and he's standing up, and Bob Snyder. Having been here in the front of the audience, are there other members of my committee present? I haven't seen them, so okay. So anyway, we're an officially constituted committee, but we started in August 2012. And another group of individuals, led by Peter Lagoy, is actually responsible for all of the work that has actually been accomplished in Hopkinton. That predated the timing of the starting of our committee. And Peter Lagoy is present here. I'd like him to stand up. So none of the action of our committee has actually resulted in any of the accomplishments that I'm going to briefly go through here, just to make that clear. So one of the main purposes that I see for Hopkinton for this meeting is that we want to seek additional public support for members of the community and to encourage people to attend our meetings. So for our regular schedule is we meet the first and third Wednesday of each month at 7 p.m. in the planning board room. This month is an unusual month so that we're actually meeting the second and third month, which means next Wednesday and then the Wednesday after that. Okay. So here's a picture of the center trail, the center trail in Hopkinton before Peter's resurfacing effort took place. It was just plain a rail bed that was publicly walkable but not publicly bikeable. There are sections of it where it flooded commonly, and recently Peter's led a resurfacing effort which has made it now a stone dust accessible trail that's bikeable, and it's pretty much similar in a way it has been done to what Robert's described for the Holliston Rail Trail. So it's a stone dust surface. Now this is just one little section of the trails situation in Hopkinton. So here's a map which I'm afraid you probably can't really read very much of, but I'll go through it if I can. So the Milford Bike Trail starts here at the southern end of Hopkinton and goes down this way. So it dead ends right at the Hopkinton border, right here. Mary Wyckoff's property, Mary's here in the audience, is this thick red line here, and we're trying to figure out how to acquire that. We've had some political difficulty just plain even getting it assessed, and I'm not sure quite where that stands, but one of the reasons that it's difficult is that it's not totally clear that even if we had that property, we could connect it to Milford. And the reason for that is that there's privately owned lands just south of her parcel, and then there's a difficult crossing to achieve over State Highway 85 in a curvy section where it's not totally clear that we're going to get highway approval to cross it right there. And for that reason, we're not sure that we end up having the trail connect over this parcel, even if we're able to negotiate to buy this parcel. And an alternative is to go through some town-owned land through College Rock and possibly get out to College Street and then maybe connect over to that parcel. So we're not clear as to where it's going to cross 85. And then when we get up to Granite Street, which is this right here, there's privately owned land up to the next town-owned parcel, which is up here. So this privately owned land is wet, and originally there were some rail bridges present over some culverts that are no longer present at all. So that if you take a casual view of this hunk of the old rail bed, you would not have even been able to tell that there ever had been a rail bed there. Now we get to some town-owned land that was bought by the town of Hopkinton at a town meeting, I guess, two town meetings ago. Now this, what I've drawn through here is a line through this hunk of the parcel that might enable us to connect up to the center trail, which is where I showed the pictures from before. But we don't know yet whether we're going to be able to acquire the rights through all of this land, not all of which is publicly owned yet, to be able to do that. And so other alternatives are perhaps to go along the old rail bed, which is also in private hands and looks kind of like some of the pictures that Robert had where it's very wet. And so we haven't worked out how we're going to get from here to there yet, really. So now this purple section here is the center trail, which Peter has resurfaced with community preservation money. And that extends up to West Main Street, where there's a Hopkinton Lumber, which is right at the northern terminus of this purple line. Beyond that, again, we face private land. What's drawn here is the rail bed, pretty much. We haven't got any rights across that land. Then we face crossing State Road 85, and then eventually we get into Legacy Farms in Ashland. So this thick red line here is at least one contiguous parcel of the rail bed that the town of Hopkinton could possibly buy. Another section in Legacy Farms is this curved piece, which is Legacy Farms South Road, which has got a sidewalk along it. Now after that, we have to figure out how to get to Ashland. And when you hear Joel talk, you'll see that just how we're going to connect up to Ashland hasn't really been worked out yet. So our vision is that we expect development to proceed in segments. And we want to figure out how to connect to Milford. So initially there's going to be some trails through the woods, some sidewalks, maybe some neighborhood streets, and will be alternatives to the trails until we figure out how to actually get a more continuous surface. And another thing is that in Hopkinton, I think it's important for us to try to integrate the path to the community, because we have a lot of business over right along 495, and I think it would be a great thing to connect the rail trail over to 495, which would allow commuting, recreation from those businesses. There's schools that are right next to the trail. We want to be able to promote children to get to school, and commuting within the town. So in Hopkinton, one of the things that's going on is there's a lot of new businesses going on all the time, new developments. So the planning board is just about every week got new planning, new developments are being planned. You know, many of these bear directly on the trail or indirectly on the trail, and it's a major task for us to try to just keep up with those new developments. Most of the relevant land in which we want to eventually build the trail is privately owned. Some of it's wet. We got 3 state highways. Probably we are not going to pave much of the trail initially, though we haven't ruled that out for other segments later. And we have to figure out how to integrate the trail system to Legacy Farms, and we haven't really gotten that worked out for the north section of Legacy Farms, and even the south part of Legacy Farms, in which there are no a lot of houses being developed. We haven't. Right now, there's no visibility of the trails yet, and we have to work with management to accomplish that. So what we plan to do next is set up a Hopkinton 501c3 organization similar to what already exists in Milford and Holliston, so as to make this happen. We need much more public participation than we've had so far. And so one of the things we hope to gain from this meeting is to find more individuals that are interested in helping set that up. So we have sign-up sheets here. That's pretty much all I have.
Thanks, Joel. That's great. Great update. So don't be discouraged. You can overcome all the obstacles. It's been proven. Okay, so our next speaker is John Higley with the Sherburne Upper Charles Conservation Land Trust. Sorry there.
Thank you.
Here you go.
Thanks very much. This is a great meeting because of the networking and the support and the regionalization, and I think that's really the case with you'll see bits and pieces from the Sherburne experience. I live in Sherburne. I'm on the planning board. I'm with Upper Charles Conservation Land Trust, which has been a sort of a long-time supporter of the whole trail. It's a regional campaign, as we all know, and that's really, I think, an important thing. When I look at the when I listen to these speakers, I really see a lot of things that have happened in the Sherburne process so far, and in looking forward. So this, I get a lot out of this because a lot of these, I get different pieces from each neighboring community. So this is really showing Sherburne. Whoops, I'm going to do the same thing. Sherburne's on the east side of this trail. We're the far east, and in our region, the trail is on our far west, on the western border of Sherburne. And that little red line is the abandoned rail that we did purchase. And the history of this is back in 1994, the MAPC application, the feasibility study that was done in 96. In 2001, the Sherburne master plan and the in the master plan, the trail got support and was mentioned as a goal for the town in our master plan. And the selectmen supported it then, and as we've gone ahead, we've had selectmen support all the way. So that's sort of hear what we've heard today, and that's happened with Sherburne. The other thing is that we really partnered. I wrote here in this slide, Sherburne partners with Holliston for railbed purchase. Piggyback. We really but we had a tremendous amount of support. I spent more time in the Sherburne Town Hall than in the Holliston Town Hall than the Sherburne Town Hall. But that is that's what's going on. I mean, we partnered when the railroad CSX got to the point where they were really interested in selling. All that investment of time in Holliston working with Sherburne and vice versa really paid off, and it really helped us. The selectmen in Sherburne knew, and that was the plan, that we were partnering with Holliston, and that has been, and you're not done with us yet. I mean, that's a great relationship, and now it's expanded to this whole family of communities. So in 2009, we were prepared, and we got a grant from DCR that with a matching fund that enabled the purchase of the small piece that's available, about a quarter mile of trail. And then we had, with that grant, we also made progress in a plan. Sherburne Forest and Trails Association, kind of like a friends group for all the trails in Sherburne. They've been active in supporting it. Getting the grant had to be approved at the in town meeting with a warrant article. Went through all that process. We really got town support with very good help from the Sherburne Forest and Trails Association. It's not a town committee. It's a separate organization. They did a great job in helping support that, and we've had a cleanup day with them. And then in 2013, or last year, we've got an agreement with a developer that abuts the trail to provide a bypass. We'll take a look at that. Our current obstacles are that the trail itself, most of it's in wetland and declared a vernal pool. So we've got to figure out how to deal with that. That could be a multi-year process to try to decertify that as a vernal pool. Another major obstacle is that's it, a quarter mile. We've got a mile and a half of beautiful straight rail bed, but only a quarter mile is available, was abandoned, and we've now purchased that. The rest is active line. So that's kind of an obstacle. And if and when it does get abandoned, we've got to figure out how to purchase it. So we've got alternate routes and things in mind. We haven't really aggressively gone after that because we'd like to go right straight down the rail bed. And then we've got abutter concerns, maintenance costs, things like that. So this is our current focus, which is to build a bypass around the vernal pool wetlands area. And it's a little hard to see, but that if you can see a red line, it runs right up next to the rail bed, parallel to it. The developer is developing, on this picture, this area here is a farm that's getting developed. It's called Whitney Farms. This is Whitney Street. And so they're going to build or enable they're going to build a parking lot for us and a trail that will go bypassing the rail bed and then enter onto the trail once we get past the wetlands area. So we bypass that problem. It also provides an access, a place to park, and an access. And that had to be something that the town agreed to, and they have. So and it hasn't been finalized yet because they're still building the development there. But we have an agreement to do that, and the final design is yet to be completed. But we hope that will be ADA compliant and that it will be a usable way to access the trail and a little place to park for anybody. So that's a nice solution. There we are. This is, if you can see this is just a morass of alternate ideas. So this is our little piece that we own, and then we thought, okay, here's like a little bypass here. Now, how do we go north? Because it's active line. Do we go north all the way to Framingham, to the Bay Circuit Trail to connect to Ashland? And then all the workarounds. One idea is to just parallel the rail bed on land that's to the west. Some of that land is Upper Charles Conservation Land Trust land. I think we can make that happen. But other parts are owned by the town or private parties. So we'd have to construct a trail where it doesn't already exist, to go just west and perfectly parallel to the rail bed. There's wetlands issues, not an easy task, and to invest in that, there's a fair amount that's wetlands. To invest in a trail to the west is difficult. Going around it on the east side, this is Whitney Street, so we'd be walking on a moderate to, at least during some rush hour times, heavily traveled road is not a great solution, but then get onto the power line. So we'd have to get approval from NSTAR to go down through their access, through their power line. There's trails there now, but we'd have to get a more formal permission to do that, and then get into conservation land and use the existing trail network. It's not all flat, it's beautiful. I encourage you to go walk on those trails, but it was certainly not a rail bed. Migrate in, and then we could go down possibly, this is a wild idea, to go down beside and use the CSX road on their property and cross where it's single track. This rail bed about halfway through the property, the Sherburne portion becomes multi-track, and all they do is store cars on it now, rail cars. So we're developing the idea of maybe they would allow us to cross the railroad there and go up and build and actually build that part of the trail parallel. It's an odd bypass. I think it would be rare that a CSX or any railroad company would allow you to go across a line. They'd have to somehow declare this either inactive, which has a lot of issues, or just create some kind of gate or something that would be that could be moved and opened if they wanted to push cars further down. They haven't. So we think it's a negotiable thing, but that's discussions with a large railroad company, a national company, about a little crossing is. Let's just move right on. But if we can do that, then we could access through town conservation land, existing trails. There's a nice parking lot there. It's called Barber Reservation. And that's really, for us in Sherburne, this is a regional thing. This is just what the other speakers have said. This is a great thing. It's a regional way for us all us communities to communicate. It's just like Ashland and Hopkinton talking about a fire department and fire safety. It's a regional thing. That's our future, to work together on these things. So here, this part of the trail is connecting really great conservation land, open space access that I'm excited about connecting to Ashland through the Bay Circuit Trail and in up to Framingham. The opportunity to go north from there, I think, is a great connection for the whole Upper Charles River Rail Trail to connect on north, and I think someone said Lowell. So I just think these regional things are great, and for Sherburne, this is way over on the western side. I love the idea of businesses along a trail putting in a pipe rack to allow bicycles. I love that stuff. We don't have any business zone. We don't have any houses on here on this part of the trail. So we do have, this is for us a way to connect from our open space and conservation to yours, and for us to work together as a community. It's great. Key stuff, and again, this has sort of popped up in other conversations today. Our conservation agent has been a champion of this, our conservation commission and department. Our town planner has been involved with this a long time. Our town planner and conservation really did all the hard work to get the DCR grant. We're updating our master plan and open space plan, so the town government is in support of this. Chris Tallman, Sherburne Forest and Trails Association, they've been supportive, and I think their continued support is really key. And then there's individuals, just Rob Wolf, Barbara Kantorski, Ed Perry, Diane Moore's the selectman. They've been involved in this and supporting of this for a long time. So I want to recognize them, and I think that's the type of support that's really great. I just put down local resources. But we've got 1.5 miles of trail. We've got a 1/4 mile done, and we're salivating over the balance of it right down the rail bed that's still active. And that's kind of where we are now. The networking here is fantastic. I really thank everybody here, and this is a great opportunity. Pat, you're doing a marvelous job.
Thanks, Joel. Okay, and our final presenter for this morning, Joel Arbitman from Ashland.
Hello, I'm Joel Arbeitman, from the Ashland Bike Club. And the first thing I want to say is that I really want to thank the Friends of the Charles Trail and all of my fellow panelists, because they have really led the way. You know, in Ashland, we're really at the very first step, and they have been really inspirational, showing us what can be done. And I also would like to thank Patria for her inspirational talk, because one of the things that's very important is not just catering to bike riders, it's catering to the entire community, and that includes our businesses here in Ashland. We all benefit when our businesses benefit. So this is a multi, there's multiple aspects to the audience we're trying to address with this program. The other thing I wanted to highlight is that I'm a bicycling guy, I'm a cyclist, and I have been corrected too many times, and I still haven't learned the lesson from my fellow panelists, that this isn't just about a bike path. This is a multi-use, separated, that's the important concept here, separated path that we're trying to build. And separated means as much as possible we take it off of the road. I can't begin to tell you how many people come up to me and they say, oh, I would love to bike, but I will not go on the road. I would never do it. And I try to encourage them that we take safe back roads and so on, and it's just not going to be. And last summer, during Ashland Day, the Ashland Bike Club took a survey, and I thought people would come over, they'd see the bike club, and they'd talk to me about bicycle riding. Well, my eyes got opened, let me tell you. We had moms with kids in strollers coming up. Where am I supposed to take my kid for a walk? Where do I go that it's safe? We had families, we had parents coming up talking about their kids walking home from school and looking for a safer path, something a little more natural than either walking on the streets that I see all the time, right? Just the other day I was here learning how to use the microphone, and I saw kids walking up here on Franklin Road with cars whizzing by at 40 miles an hour, and the kids are oblivious. They're walking home with their books and their friends, walking in the middle of the road. There's no sidewalks there. So one of the goals that I have is to try to connect as many different parts of our community as possible, in addition to connecting to our neighbors. This idea of regionalization and building regional cooperation, not just for bike paths, but to begin to, hands across the water and reach out to other towns and begin to build the kind of working relationships so that our Metro West area here becomes more sustainable for all of us. We're not always going to be able to get the state funding or the federal funding for a lot of these programs. So let me see if I can get this slide presentation going here. Let's see here. So these are just some of them. I won't go through these individually, but these are just some of the types of benefits that we envision from building these separated multi-use paths. And again, I want to emphasize some projects in town are looking at possibly putting bike lanes in, and they come up to me and they say, how about that? We're going to put a bike lane in, and the concern with that's a great first step, but the concern is that it doesn't necessarily meet the objective, and the objective should be to make walking and biking safer for everyone in the community. And before we start striping roads and saying, look, we've accommodated the bicyclists, we really need to understand that if a majority of the residents aren't going to take advantage of that, would you ride, say, down Route 126 or Route 135 if you had a bike lane? And the people I've talked to so far, and this is really for the community to do a broader assessment. The answer is they really wouldn't. Most people are not comfortable with that. So what we're looking at here is trying to build what's called a separated path and get people into a safer environment. Mass DOT, this was in an email I just received from MAPC a couple of weeks ago, has set a very ambitious goal. By the year 2030, they want to triple the number of walking, cycling, and public transportation trips. It's a really ambitious goal. It's not an easy goal. And of course, as always, there are funding and planning issues of how that's going to be achieved. The problem is, that was my fancy PowerPoint. That was good. The problem is that, again, we have Milford, now we have Holliston has extended this trail. But if you look at where the big trails are on the big greenways map, this is Worcester all the way down into Rhode Island, a beautiful trail there. The Blackstone River Trail, our bike club took a ride on that last year. It was absolutely beautiful. You hear all this talk about a Northampton to Boston corridor. That's all up on Route 9. And all kinds of stuff going up north of Boston. And Metro West, we're like the isolated piece right here. I was very inspired to hear David Lautzenheiser talking about doing assessments and maybe networking us in, because that's what it really is about. You know, you build these isolated islands, that's a good starting point, but it's got to be woven together as part of the state's transportation vision. So let's just move along here. All right, so a little history. What we found, we took a survey at Ashland Day, I think I was referring to, and it was unbelievable. We asked about 105 people to give us feedback on walking and biking and whether they'd be willing to invest in this. On almost every question, it was almost unanimous. 103 out of the 105 people we asked were wildly enthusiastic about not just that they thought it would be nice to have walking and biking, but that they thought it was important for the town to really make a significant investment in making it part of our future. A couple of other quick points. I guess the bottom line is that I think it's my belief that this is almost a unanimous vision that the community has. You know, that needs to be assessed still, but it's my belief that this is something that the community really wants to have happen. Something very significant is going on. We'll get to the plan in a minute. The town of Ashland recently received a $6 million grant, not for bike paths specifically, but to develop the rail transit district. This is the business district right along near the train station. And part of that grant is to include, as I understand it, some bike paths. We're very much looking at mechanisms to not just upgrade the commerce along the rail transit district, but also to tie in the train station to downtown Ashland and perhaps to other destinations. So within Ashland, and this is going to be a lot easier to just read the list here than it is to go through the maps, which I think are going to be tough to see. The objective is to tie together a whole bunch of components of our community. The Rail Transit District, Ashland State Park, the Ashland Middle School, down to Stone Park, downtown Ashland, Ashland High School, Market Basket, Route 126. I mean, these are all the major pieces of Ashland, and it's my belief that all of this stuff could be networked together fairly simply and fairly easily in developing a trail. I also want to emphasize that I've had some encouragement from Ashland School Committee. You know, we heard earlier from the selectmen from Milford that there was concern about funding and would this cut into the school's budget and stuff. Well, one of the things that the plan that I have here envisions is networking the middle school down to Stone Park and downtown Ashland instead of having kids walking along Route 135. And it also networks in the high school. And all of this is done over existing town land. We have the land up above Magunko Road from the access road down to Stone Park. And we also have the Bay Circuit Trail, which I think could be instrumental in letting us come from downtown Ashland all the way over to the Sherborne line to our east. And then connecting to the other two towns on either side of us to our west, that we have a plan that we'll take a look at in a minute that can connect over to Hopkinton State Park. And then again, using the Bay Circuit Trail, coming through the Market Basket area of Route 126, getting over to Sherborne. Okay, so I don't want to spend too much time on the slides. I'm not sure how easy they are to see, but whoop, that thing went on its own. Let's see where we are here. There we go. There we go. All right, so if we're starting, there's the vision here is that there are sort of, if you envision a plus sign, we have a north-south axis and we have an east-west axis. The north-south axis would take us from the Ashland train station more or less along the access road that comes and crosses at Route 135 down into Ashland State Park. And going off to the west over here on the east-west axis, this would take us to Hopkinton State Park. And the benefit of that, you know, I've had conversations with Mass DCR. We have a representative here. And I've had conversations with Mass DOT about this. And they're very excited about the idea of tying in the train station to the two state parks, Ashland State Park and Hopkinton State Park. So let's just buzz through these slides. I think I'm not going to stop too much to go through these. If you're interested in seeing the details of the plan, they're available on the board in the back right corner of the room. So this, just to show you, let's see where we got to here. I can hardly even see this myself. Right here, this is a spur off of this trail. This is coming along the access road, that, if you're familiar with this, that runs from Route 135 down to the Ashland train station. And we would tap off a spur that would go down the hill into downtown Ashland, Stone Park, and into downtown Ashland. And then the plan is, if we come across at the Dunkin' Donuts light, that would take us out Voyagers Lane, and that puts us right, well, it puts us nowhere. Here, let's see. Where did this go? It disappeared. Right there. Okay, let me put this down. Okay. By crossing at 135, it puts us right here in the state park already. And you know, I've had some talks with DCR, and the possibilities of building the trail within there to get to the state park access road are very real possibilities. Okay, let me just zoom through these.
Excuse me, was
yes.
that map through the what do they call it? No. Where the folks live?
Voyagers Lane.
The subdivision.
I don't know if it's a subdivision, but this particular vision goes out the very end of Voyagers Lane. There's like a little spur. It's right at the traffic light.
Okay, yeah, but it doesn't go down here. It's
no.
Down where the condominium.
It's where the Dunkin' Donuts is, exactly. Now there is something important that I want to point out, but yeah, it's on this slide here. This is the path coming, this is Hopkinton State Park here, and there's something I want to point out, and the emphasis here is on the urgency. Why we can't sit around for another year or two talking about this and hoping that something will happen. We need to start acting. And there's a reason, there's a real urgency here. In 2008, we had a recession. Development slowed down to a crawl. That's not happening now. Now we're starting to get a lot of permit requests for new development coming in. And this route coming down here to Hopkinton State Park, I just drove over this road just this past week. All of this land is up for sale. There's talk about putting houses in there. And we need, in my view, we need to start putting this plan down and buying into it, or a plan, whether it's this exact plan or not. We need to know where these trails need to go, because we're running out of room. And if we don't act proactively and new developments happen, the ways that we can route through the available land without going on main streets to go from one place to another get choked off. They become harder and harder for us to route and find a way to get from point A to point B. So all of this stuff up here is under development, and there's also another development that is in the process of getting approved. I thought perhaps if instead of cutting through here on this path, if we came down this street here and around the bend, well, this whole area is also getting developed. There's a whole other cluster of houses. So this is what happens, and each time I find out, oh, you can't go that way anymore, you start to go back to the maps and you go, okay, well, maybe we could come over here. But it's getting more and more difficult, and the more development progresses, the more that the remaining land is unsuitable for building, like wetlands. And you've already heard discussions of some of the problems with that. We can't necessarily just build on wetlands. There are all kinds of environmental regulations. So we need to be proactive is the point. I just want to show a little bit of getting to Sherborne, which is not an easy task. If we started from the Stone Park area, which is in downtown Ashland, some of this, and there are other ways to get here, but some of this is picking up what's called the Bay Circuit Trail, which actually runs along this downtown street. And once we get beyond that street, and we cross Route 135, it goes up behind Ashland High School on the Bay Circuit Trail, and eventually that trail leads all the way into Sherborne. So that's what we're hoping is that trail is not bikeable by any means right now. It's maybe not even walkable at points. But the goal would be to recognize that it is public land and that perhaps we could improve it a little bit, not necessarily paving it. Maybe we could use gravel or whatever, which is a much less expensive treatment, and take advantage of the public access that already exists there. I see we're running short on time, so I'm going to try to wrap. I'm going to skip a few things here. Here's a quote by some guy I never heard of, this Shams E. Tabrizi. I'll just let you read that. I think he said this very well. But somebody said it better than this guy, and here he is. So, let me just conclude with a couple of quick remarks. You okay here? Okay, all the way to the end. All right. I would like to issue a challenge to everyone here and to our representatives and town leaders, state reps and senators. I'd like to come back here a year from today at the next conference, and I'd like to be able to talk about our first shovel in the ground, that we already started doing something, that we're not just planning and talking, we're moving, all right? And I'd like to be able to show you, just like all these other great towns and people have done, I'd like to be able to show you pictures of volunteers. We had our tree cutting guy back there. I'd like to get everybody out there working, cleaning, and being excited and being part of this. I'd like to be able to show you scenic views from the trails that we're planning to complete. I'd like to be able to show you pictures of all kinds of trail users, cross-country skiers, skaters, rollerbladers, bike riders, walkers, families, dog walkers, what have you. Lacking funding, which is often a very important and very real reason that we get stopped dead in our tracks and we don't do anything, shouldn't stop us from making progress. Let's figure out where the trail is going to go. Let's figure out what the problems are. Let's get the map set. Let's protect where the trail is going to go from further development. We can do this if we all get involved and we all take action now. Thanks.